Hello everyone. Thank you for watching the video. Wishing you all good health and peace. Dieu Han woke up early. Watching her child sleeping soundly, she gently stroked the soft hair and carefully laid the baby still on the small blanket. Today she had to build a chicken coop. Otherwise, the little chicks would have no safe shelter. She picked up a knife and walked toward the bamboo grove, where tall and densely packed bamboo stalks stood. To build a sturdy coop, she had to select straight bamboo stalks. Not too old, yet not too young, so they would be easier to weave. Standing before the grove, she raised the knife, examined the stalks carefully, then struck down forcefully. The first chop echoed sharply, but the tough bamboo required multiple strikes to cut through. Bamboo sap oozed out, sticking to her hands, but she paid no mind, focusing solely on cutting. As the first bamboo stalk fell, she quickly dragged it out of the thicket to prevent it from tangling with the others. Then she moved on to the second, then the third. With each chop, her arms grew more fatigued, yet she pressed on, ensuring each strike was firm and precise. Once she had cut enough bamboo, she took her knife and carefully stripped away the sharp branches to prevent injuries during transport. The long, heavy bamboo stalks lay before her. She bent down, tied them into bundles, then placed the carrying pole over her shoulders. Her shirt was soaked with sweat, and every step on the way home felt as if she were dragging her entire body forward. Occasionally, she had to set the bamboo down, gently massaging her aching shoulders before continuing. When she finally reached home, she dropped the pole onto the ground, panting heavily but not stopping for long. She picked up the knife again, shaving each bamboo stalk, peeling off the outer layer, and splitting them into neat, slender strips. Her hands began to sting as the sharp bamboo edges scraped against her skin, but she only glanced at them briefly before continuing her work. Next, she dug holes and planted the bamboo posts to form the coop's frame. Each shovel strike sent dirt flying onto her clothes. She pressed the posts deep into the ground with all her strength, then tied them tightly with rope to keep the structure stable. Smaller bamboo strips were then woven together, forming sturdy walls for the coop. Once the frame was completed, she gathered large bundles of dried grass and spread them over the roof to provide shade and protection from the rain. Climbing up, she secured each layer of grass to the bamboo frame, carefully adjusting them to prevent the wind from blowing them away. Just then, a loud cry came from the hut. Dieu Han quickly climbed down and ran inside to soothe her baby. Holding the child close to her chest, she gently patted and comforted the little one while continuing to finish her work. Her small hands moved swiftly, tying ropes and adjusting each panel of the coop. By the time the chicken coop was finally completed, the sun had already begun to set. She carried the little chicks inside, watching them chirp and peck at the grains with a deep, indescribable sense of joy. Though exhausted, she knew she had done what was necessary. A long, tiring day had passed, but life would go on, and tomorrow she would have to keep going. In the soft morning sunlight, Dieu Han stepped out of the house, carrying her child in a sling against her chest, and headed toward the coconut grove. Today, she decided to harvest coconuts to sell at the market, hoping to earn a little extra money to cover expenses. The winding red dirt path led into the grove, flanked by overgrown wild grass, with streaks of sunlight filtering through the towering coconut leaves. With steady yet gentle steps, she ventured deeper into the forest. The sight of the tall coconut trees, heavy with clusters of fruit, filled her with excitement. She placed her child in a safe spot, tugged the cloth snugly around the baby to keep warm, and then picked up her knife, making her way to the nearest tree. Running her hands over the coconuts, she carefully selected the large, fresh green ones. The sharp blade sliced cleanly through the stems, sending each coconut dropping onto the soft ground, rolling a few times before she gathered them into her basket. After collecting over a dozen coconuts, she paused for a moment, picked one and chopped off the top with her knife. Bringing it to her lips, she took a sip. The cool, sweet water spread through her mouth, refreshing her in the sweltering heat. Finishing her drink, she resumed picking until her basket was full. Her steps became heavier under the weight of the coconuts on her back, yet she persisted, making her way toward the forest's edge, where the road to the market awaited. On the way, she stopped at a small roadside shop and offered to sell some coconuts. The shop owner tried one, found the water delicious, and bought a few. Dieu Han gladly accepted the money, carefully tucking it away before continuing her journey. Arriving at the temporary roadside market, She spread out a small cloth, neatly arranging the coconuts before sitting down to wait for customers. People passed by, some stopped to buy, others glanced at her goods before continuing on their way. She gently called out to potential buyers, her warm smile never fading. Slowly, her basket emptied, replaced by small bills she carefully tucked into her pocket. By midday, almost all the coconuts had been sold. She stood up, stretched briefly, and packed up her belongings. Though the money she earned wasn't much, it was enough to buy some rice and a bit of food for her child. On the way home, she stopped by a small shop to pick up a few necessities before leisurely making her way back to her humble hut. Today had been a successful day of earning a living. Though exhausted, she felt relieved knowing she had a little more to get by. The road ahead was still long, but Dieu Han refused to let herself feel discouraged. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she believed she would overcome them. Dieu Han sat on a bamboo mat, cradling her child in her arms, soothing the baby with gentle whispers. The little one stirred, eyes half closed but unwilling to sleep. She rocked softly, patting the baby's back. After a while, the infant began to fuss, and she quickly loosened her blouse to nurse. Her slender fingers gently stroked the baby's soft, wispy hair, bringing her a small sense of peace. Once the baby was full, she carefully laid the child on a small blanket, tucking the edges over the tiny belly to keep warm. Ensuring the baby was sleeping soundly, Dieu Han grabbed a small basket, wrapped herself in a scarf, and followed the narrow footpath to the lotus pond. In the morning sunlight, the lotus flowers bloomed beautifully, their pink petals rising above the water, releasing a delicate fragrance. She waded in, the water reaching her knees, moving cautiously to avoid stirring up the mud beneath her feet. Choosing the freshest blossoms, she skillfully plucked each stem and arranged them neatly in her basket. Before long, the basket was full. She lifted it out of the water, let the excess drip off, and made her way home. Back at the hut, she emptied the lotus flowers into a large basin, carefully rinsing each petal before soaking them in water to keep them fresh. Once finished, she took a brief rest before heading to the stream to catch fish. She carried a woven bamboo trap to a shallow section of the stream, where the muddy water and dense aquatic plants provided a perfect hiding place for fish. Stepping in, she felt the soft mud between her toes, gauging the depth before slowly lowering the trap into the water. With both hands gripping firmly, she moved it carefully, eyes sharp for any movement. Suddenly, a strong splash startled her. She quickly lifted the trap. Inside was a large carp, flailing helplessly. Swiftly, she reached in, grabbed its slippery body, and tossed it onto the bank. She tried a few more times and managed to catch another fish. Her hands were covered in mud as she wiped her face and let out a relieved sigh. That was enough. Tonight, she and her child would have a good meal. Back home, she quickly lit the stove. The charcoal caught fire, sending wisps of smoke curling beneath the thatched roof. She carefully scaled and gutted the fish, washing them thoroughly. Tomatoes, scallions, lemongrass, and some sour greens were chopped and arranged on a bamboo tray. She placed a pot of water over the fire, added the fish with a pinch of salt, and waited for it to boil before tossing in the tomatoes, lemongrass, and a handful of yellow sesbania flowers. The aroma filled the air as the soup simmered. She scooped up a spoonful and tasted it. The perfect balance of sour and sweet spread across her tongue. Satisfied, she smiled. As the soup finished cooking, she prepared a bowl of steaming rice, pouring a bit of the flavorful broth over it. Carrying her baby to the front porch, she ate while chatting softly with the child. Today, at least, the two of them had a warm, filling meal. Watching the sky turn golden as evening approached, she told herself she must keep pushing forward. Let's look forward to the challenges and journeys that await Dieu Han in the days to come.
Cuộc đời là một con đường dài, nơi giấc mơ hòa tan thực tại. Buồng bước chân ta bắt xây dần bức tranh vẽ lên thử thách lớn. Những nỗi đau, niềm vui tạm bợ tạo nên muôn màu sắc cuộc đời. Dù cuộc sống đôi khi thử thách, những đam mê vẫn trực trào cháy. Hãy sống với đam mê cháy bỏng, đừng chờ đợi mà hãy thực hiện những khoảnh khắc quý giá lắm, đừng để thời gian trôi xa. Giữa bộn bề cuộc sống tìm chút bình yên, trong trái tim lặng lẽ nơi còn phiền giọt sương mai đọng trên lá xanh, đem lại niềm vui cuộc sống vắng tanh. Ánh sáng mặt trời rọi qua mây, dù mưa giông vẫn đang đong đầy, trong lòng chứa đầy hy vọng, ngày mai sáng tươi chờ đợi ta. Bước đi trên con đường đầy hoa, dẫu khó